loosely interpreting a drawing by this one here by there we are, by A.Y. Jackson, and I kind of recreated the idea with a bit of ink. Right, maybe I could do a little bit more. And actually, when you're working with ink, oftentimes, if you're not sure where to how you want the ink to work, it's not a bad idea just to do a little bit of a pencil drawing to start. Right, you can kind of make sure you understand how things are going to work. You can get nice and gestural and generally sort of get comfortable with the form that that you want to describe, right? And then that can guide where your ink goes, because of course ink is like completely permanent. This is certainly a permanent ink marker, and actually, well, I should actually say, right, sort of if you're going to do ink first and then watercolor afterwards, or any other kind of wash, do test to make sure that your actual ink is waterproof, because unless you like the effect of it being running into the work, which can be nice, but if it surprises you, it's not so much fun. So anyway, so there's a little drawing. As I say, if you want to do something with pencil first, you can do ink after on top of the pencil, and then just go around and just completely erase all the pencil lines, right? So that then you just end up with an ink drawing. And the fun thing with ink is that, or I find it, the fun thing is that sort of the looser the better, right? You can have quite a tight drawing and then do some loose ink on top of that. It works quite well. And then on top of that, if I've got an ink drawing, then I decide I'm going to use a little bit of wash, whether it's watercolor or something else. Because of the strength of that ink sitting there, right, it almost doesn't matter. So it matters a bit, but the thing is, if I go over part of the form, right, with my watercolor wash, right, it just doesn't detract from it too much, right? Because you've always got the ink there. So here I just went over a bit of that on purpose, right? So just to maybe I go a bit below the horizon or something, right there, because you still the eye still reads it as a form, and the ink itself carries the day, right? But it just gives a little bit of a nice context. So I could do the same here, right? If I happen to go into the building with my grass, it's not the end of the world. And you can see as I'm putting the paint down, right? I'm definitely not really trying to be too precise, right? Because that'll still work out in the end, right? And the other thing I'd say is notice that I always leave a bit when I'm using watercolor. I always make sure I kind of leave a little bit of white space, so that if there was any problem with it getting too saturated, I've kind of alleviated that by having some white space there all the time, right? I can kind of continue on with this, and if I say that this is going to have some wood boards, maybe this should be a little darker than that. Again, if I don't, I mean, I'm paying some attention to where I put the paint, but again, if it's not in exactly the right place, in some ways it adds to it, right? Maybe. And even though I've got some wet green in there still, maybe it doesn't matter too much, because again, it's the ink that is carrying the day, right? Actually, but Monique, really, I'm just using a scrap of paper out of an old. It is watercolor paper though, £40 watercolor paper. It just came out of a.
It's we don't always do sketches on.
Partly, I mean, if you've got tough paper, you can probably do like everything I've just done would be doable on tough regular paper, I think, right? In fact, I probably can pull out a couple of things, right, that where I've done it on regular paper, but thickish drawing paper. Like the thicker the better, because as soon as you start doing a bit of wash, you know, I can't deny it's going to buckle a little bit, right? So but I do wash on regular paper, right? Like do something like I'm doing here. I don't go back in and try and finesse it by you know erasing or moving the ink around. But what I've just done would work, I think. More water on top. I've not leaks. I've just basically done wet on dry, and then a single go as well, right? I'm like, as you can see, I'm using the brush, but I never go back and rub over what I without getting too far into this. I'm just going to decide I'm going to have a red roof here, right? So I don't know. The roof was red. Who the hell knows? Roof. At least this part of it. There you go. And again, I'll leave a bit of white space so it looks like there's a little bit of something on it. This looks more like board, so maybe I'll change my tune and change that. This is obviously two buildings put together, or one extension. You can see that the boards and things are. Well, I can. You probably can't see it from where you are, right? But that's so there we go. So that's a little. That's got the idea of this in wash and watercolor. And even though I kind of purposely had my watercolor run into the form that I was working on, right? I've managed to sort of make it work enough that it sits there as a nice little drawing. And then the last thing that you can do is actually then go and if you want, you know, you can add ink afterwards, of course, as well, right? And I do this. I will tend to do ink before drawing, and I'll do ink afterwards. So if there's areas where I feel I need more definition, or I want the, or perhaps I'll just start with things very schematically defined, and I want a little bit more clarity afterwards, where I know where the emphasis should be, right? I will then go and actually perhaps do a bit more ink in after. And that's the nice thing about ink, is you can use it before and after. So I always advise people, don't worry, don't put too much down until you see the effect you're getting, and then you can perhaps add a little bit afterwards. Like these I've got, there's some fencing in here, which I think I'm going to capture with some ink. I'm making some of this up. The drawing's not particularly extensively defined, although there is evidently some kind of fence going out here. Yeah, so there we go. So that's that's my little attempt at an ink and wash drawing.